What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Total Takedown. This is UFC Sao Paulo, and we are talking overs and unders. We already broke down this entire card, top to bottom, on Monday. Make sure you check that out. It's right here at Pub Sports Radio. Today, the goal is to find you value on an over or an under instead of playing a money line. So we're going to go back through this card top to bottom. We're going to check out these totals. First fight of the night, Fernandez taking on Diakese. We've got a 2.5 to get our night started. Over is minus 175. The under is plus 135. This one I feel like is fighter dependent more often than not. Mark Diakese has become a decision machine. D1 Diakese. We're all used to this man strapping on the singlet, going out there taking his opponent down. If he does that to UFC newcomer Fernandez, he probably wins a unanimous decision because Diakese just doesn't really go for the finish. He doesn't put himself in any danger. He doesn't take any risks. Fernandez, on the other hand, UFC debut, he's going to have those jitters in front of his hometown crowd, filling in on short notice. You feel like this guy's probably got to go for it. I kind of feel like he's going to push the pace here on this one. I think Fernandez is going to be the one who finishes if there's a finish in this fight. He's a submission specialist. He's got those long, lanky legs, big power in those head kicks. I kind of feel like under is Fernandez, over is Diakese, and I've been struggling with this fight all week. You've got plus 135 to that under 2.5, and I personally do lean towards Fernandez, so I would lean towards that under. Not a fight that I feel confident in whatsoever, and not a total that's going to be making my betting card, but for the sake of the show, we'll go under. Next up, you've got Eduardo Mora taking on Montserrat Ruiz. The 2.5 is minus 165 to the under and plus 130 to the over. I'm going violence here, ladies and gentlemen. I know the under is essentially just a bet on Eduardo Mora, but she's going to maul Montserrat Ruiz. Ruiz is way too small for this weight class at the UFC level. She's got a head and arm throw, and that is quite literally it. Decent boxing, decent toughness. She's going to get mauled physically by Mora, and there's going to be nothing she can do to stop it. So I know we're breaking the rules. You're supposed to have both fighters contributing to an under or an over, and I don't care. I'm going under 2.5. Next up, you've got Angela Hill taking on Denise Gomez. 2.5 the total. Over 2.5 is minus 280. Under 2.5 is plus 210. And this is an Angela Hill fight. Similar to the last fight, how basically we broke the rules saying that our fighter is going to finish and that's all we care about. The exact opposite is true here. Angela Hill doesn't get finished. We can rely on her durability. We've always been able to, and I'm going to bank on it until we can't. Now, maybe Saturday, Denise Gomez is the one who's finally going to put a nail in the coffin of Angela Hill, but I got to see it before I'm willing to put my money on it. I don't like minus 280, but the over is going to be the pick. Renat Fakhretdinov takes on Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. 2.5 the total. This is more in that pick'em ballpark we like to see. Over 2.5, minus 130. Under 2.5, even money, plus 100. You can probably find a plus 105 out there for the violence bet on this one. And I kind of like the violence bet on this one. I have been tempted to take Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos all week. This guy's takedown defense is not great, but his get-up game is solid. He's big at 170, and his striking is electric. He can finish the fight at any point in the time against any individual. Renat Fakhretdinov has nasty power, and that chain grappling wears people out. On top of that, he goes for it with the ground and pound. He goes for it with his submission offense. So if he's going to take you down, you're going to be in a bad spot, and you're going to get hurt. Both guys are definitely capable of finishing. They both might be tough to finish, but the fact that we've got that finishing upside on both sides, and whoever's realm it is, I think controls this fight, I think we're going to see a finish. I'll say under 2.5 at plus 100. Victor Petrino taking on Modestas Bukauskas, another 2.5, and another total that's fighter dependent. Under 2.5, minus 130, over 2.5, plus 100. And if you're going over, you're thinking Modestas. This guy doesn't finish at the UFC level, folks. Plain and simple. He's got decent power in his right hand. He tries to set that up, and if he can walk you into it, maybe he can knock you out or hurt you. Otherwise, he's just going to have a low-volume fight where he relies on his gas tank and his side-to-side movement. He's really effective in 5-round fights. Essentially, he's a title shot type of fighter. He can wear you down and finish you in the 4th or the 5th round. Unfortunately, at the UFC level, he's never going to make it to a title shot or be a 5-round main event. So he's got to get it done in 3, which means he never gets it done. He'll be a decisionator the whole time that he's here. His opponent, the exact opposite. Vitor Petrino is a finisher. This guy is nasty. He's got big power. He's going to walk Modestas down, and when they decide to trade, he's going to be the guy hitting harder. So under is a vet on Petrino, and that's what I like in this spot. We do have Modestas contributing to this under with a little bit of power and with a questionable chin. So we do have reasons to take the under in this spot. I like it. Under 2.5, minus 130 is going to be the pick. Next up, you got Victor Hugo taking on Daniel Marcos. 2.5 total. Under is minus 135, and you can again get that plus 100 on the over 2.5 in this spot. And again, I kind of like the violence. Victor Hugo showed us on Dana White's Contender Series. He's got a nasty submission offense, and he can get you on the feet with those crazy big explosive attacks, spinning attacks. He is volatile in every sense of the word. His opponent, Daniel Marcos, a lot cleaner, a lot crisper. Also, maybe a lot deadlier on the feet because of that. He takes his time, he's patient, he picks his shots. Hugo is going to be dangerous, exceptionally dangerous, very early in this fight, but we've seen him tire, we've seen him gas, we've seen him slow down, and Daniel Marcos is going to be very dangerous late in this fight. I think it's a battle of who gets it done and when. I think if Marcos wins, it's going to take a little bit longer, but I do think with the gas tank questions I've got about Hugo, he ends up finding a finish if he does. Either way, I'm saying under. The 2.5 is kind of a treacherous number. I would rather pay the extra to get fight doesn't go the distance and keep those 2.5 minutes for myself personally, but just, my personal opinion on this one. Ismail Bonfim takes on Vince from Hell Pichel up next. Another 2.5 total. We got a lot of those on this card. This one's a straight up pick 'em, minus 110 either side, and it's kind of the similar situation as some of these fights we've talked about where Vince Pichel has been extremely durable over the course of his career. Usually you can bank on Vince Pichel to hang around and stay in a fight. The problem for me is our boy's getting old. He's 40 years old now, and we've seen him get less and less defensively effective because of the way he fights. It really relied on that that fast twitch muscle. He's got to be able to see his opponents come, the timing, the head movement. That's all starting to go. His opponent, Ismail Bonfim, on the other end, this guy is a nasty finisher who comes for the kill in every single fight, and I just don't think Vince has any offense that's going to get him the respect. I don't think he's going to be able to back Bonfim off him. So because he won't be able to get rid of Bonfim, Bonfim's going to be able to open up on him, and once this fight gets opened up, I don't think there's any stopping it. We'll say under 2.5. We'll vote violence one more time. Next up, you've got Rodolfo Vieira taking on Armen Petrosyan. Total set at 2.5, under minus 175. Over is plus 135, and I kind of like the over. This is one of those ones where I'll kind of buck everybody else's trend, right? You have got Armen Petrosyan, who has questions around his takedown defense, but his striking is immaculate. His get-up game is fantastic. His cardio is on point. Rodolfo Vieira, the black belt hunter. If this man gets you to the ground, his back takes are phenomenal. His squeeze is ridiculous. He's on all the good stuff. One of the craziest physiques we have ever seen in the UFC's octagon. This man is juiced to the gills. And why would we not want to see a finish in that, right? We've got a guy with the striking edge who's going to pick him apart. We got a guy with the grappling edge who's going to take him down and smash him. Why wouldn't this fight finish? Well, because it's really freaking hard to finish Victor Petrosyan. And someone like Rodolfo Vieira, we saw him take everything Chris Curtis had to offer, and he just willed himself to not go down, even though he talked about how punishing those shots were and how he wanted to just sit down from the body pain that he was feeling in that fight, but he wouldn't let himself. I think these guys are too tough. I think they're both too hard to get out of there, and because of that, we'll end up seeing a back and forth fight where we get some grappling, some striking. The grappling threat of Rodolfo is going to mute the offense of Armen Petrosyan, so he won't be able to get off the way he normally would, and the same is going to be true on the other side. Vieira is going to be very, very tentative trying to get those takedowns. He'll pick his spots very carefully because he doesn't want to take the damage trying to get in on a takedown. So I think we will get moments where these guys are playing a chess game and staring at each other. That'll lead us to an over. Plus 135 to an over 2.5. I like it. Let's roll those dice. Next up, you've got Caio Borralho taking on Abus Magomedov. The under 2.5 is minus 160, and I can't argue against that. Now, we haven't really seen Caio in any trouble whatsoever. We have seen him eat clock. He takes people's back. It's lots of control. He works his way to the over. But Abus, when his last fight, he came out really hard, had about 2 minutes of gas, and then died. It's hard to not see that again. He's usually an early finisher. He has gone 15 minutes before in his career, but we have yet to see it at the UFC level, and if he gets off, I kind of think he's going to finish Caio because that's what he does to people when he's in the driver's seat. If he gets taken down and that gas tank has an issue, Caio is way too intelligent, way too smart. They call him the fighting nerds for a reason. He will find his way to a finish here because Abus does not have the cardio to keep up. If it's a 15-minute striking match, then I think Abus is going to be in the driver's seat, and with that power edge, he will find a shot that lands on KO and hurts him at some point, and this kid's a finisher. If he hurts you, he's gonna put you down for good. So I like Violence under 2.5 minus 160. We're doing it again. Next up, Rodrigo Nascimento takes on Don'Tale Mayes. This one we've got a 1.5 finally, but it probably should be a 2.5. Over 1.5 is minus 210. They think it's going over, but it's still a 1.5, even at that giant ass number for some reason. This one is tough for me because I actually think Nascimento can finish Don'Tale Mayes just as well as he did last time. Mayes hasn't shown me anything. No improvement, no nothing. And I bet on him last time. I knew I was going to make all my Don'Tale Mayes money back, backing him against Andrei Arlovski. He got the knockout for me. I thank you, Don'Tale Mayes. Now I don't feel like an idiot for having lost money on you so many times. But I ain't doing that again. He has not shown any improvements, and we've got a fighter who's in his home country, coming out of a better gym, who's got faster hands, who's got more clean technical striking, who apparently has a grappling edge, and knows how to put a game plan together. I think we've got the rightful favorite in Rodrigo Nascimento. Last fight, he wore Don'Tale Mayes out, tapped him out in the second. This time, I think it's going to be more of a striking match because Don'Tale Mayes, even though he's got all that big size, power, and wrestling ability, you would think he'd be the one pushing the ground game, but it seems more like he wants to use it in reverse and strike, but he sucks at striking. So we're going to end up getting a kickboxing matchup, and he hated what he was feeling coming from him when Nascimento hit him the last fight. I think Nascimento's going to knock him out. So I kind of think this is going to be an under spot, except I don't want under 1.5 at plus 160. I'd be looking at fight doesn't go the distance or something like that, because there's no point in laying this kind of a number in my opinion. I do think we get up and over that 1.5, and then once somebody wears out or makes a mistake, then we'll get our finish. It's just going to be a little later, so I'll say over 1.5. Gabriel Bonfim, in your co-main event, takes on Nicholas Dalby. 1.5 the total. Over is plus 100 even money. Under 1.5 minus 130. And the one and only time we saw Nicholas Dalby get hurt and finished, it was fast and it was early. This man tends to start slow. Gabriel Bonfim is the exact opposite. He comes like a bat out of hell. Now, this could be the fight where he's getting that first step up in competition. Maybe he's a little nervous. Maybe he's not quite as effective as he thought he would be. We sometimes see these prospects hit that first decision fight when they get that first jump up in competition. It just takes them a little bit longer to figure the fight out, and they're not able to run through their opponents like they're used to on their way up. I'm worried that's this fight. I really am. I think Bonfim's going to find his finish. It's just a matter of time. And if he does it early, that's what's been the one thing we've seen get to Nicholas Dalby, is if you get to him quick, you can get him out of there. I think Bonfim's going to finish him, and I do think it's going to be early because that's what this kid does. I truly think he's special. Under 1.5, minus 130. Your main event on Saturday is Jailton Almeida. He is taking on Derek the Black Beast Lewis, and we've got a 1.5. Under 1.5 is minus 135. I'm sorry, minus 345. You heard that right. Over 1.5 is plus 250. So we're getting a big fat chalk number on 1.5 because it's Jailton Almeida, folks. That's what this guy does. And when it's not Jailton Almeida, it's Derek Lewis. We saw his last fight. He flew through the air and knocked a man's teeth clean out of his face. That sets up for violence. The problem for me, as you guys know, I like to buck the trend. I've picked violence on this entire card. Why would I not do the same in the main event? That's right, we are going over 1.5. I don't know if I've got the cojones to bet it. This would be the butthole pucker spot of the week for this fight to get out of the first round. But if you look back at Derek Lewis's history, I know he's been kind of an under machine lately because he's gotten finished, and then he just so happened to have the perfect opponent to go ahead and land an early shot against in his last fight. But it actually generally ends up being more of a staring contest. Think about the Francis Ngannou fight. Now, I know that was striker versus striker. It's a little different. But what we end up having is people are scared of his power. And then it takes them a little bit of time to get their game going because of that. And he doesn't always unload all the way, all the time, early, immediately. He carries that power late. Derek Lewis has had several round 2 and round 3 finishes in his career where he's taken people deep, and then once they get a little tired, once they slow down, he's still got that explosiveness, and that's when he finds the finish. I would not be at all shocked if Jailton Almeida doesn't hit that early takedown on this one, and this fight squeezes its way into the second round. Now, we have seen Jailton Almeida in round 2 be just as effective as he is in round 1, but he's got more of that blanket-style grappling. He's got the blast double-leg wrestling takedown. It's not fancy. It's not trips. It's not drags. Those are the things that have really gotten to Derek Lewis. So if you're going to shoot a double leg on him, you got to watch out for that uppercut. These guys might stare at each other for the first 3 minutes of the fight, and then we've only got 2 minutes worth of fighting to get through to get us to round 2. at plus 250, now you got my attention. I might actually be looking at over 1.5 in your main event for UFC Sao Paulo. That's the Total Takedown, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow for the Undefeated Post Weigh-In show, where I'll break out that tinfoil cap, and let's roll. Good luck on all your degenerate action. We'll talk to you tomorrow.